Okay, so I've never done any of this getting up in front of people speaking. No, well, actually, that's a lie. I've done a couple bits of open mic stand-up comedy a couple times, and that's quite a bit different than getting up in front of people and being, emotionally vulnerable. And in fact, Monday I went to Action Networking and I presented and I talked about something there, and I didn't prepare anything. I didn't prepare anything for this, but I've been preparing my entire life. And what I have been doing is I spent a year preparing all of this. And it's been a lot of ups, a lot of downs, some depression, a lot of thinking that I can't go on, I just got to get rid of this. But that's not really what I want to talk about. I want to talk about what brought me to this point. And it goes back a long way. When I was in first grade, I ended up standing next to a hospital bed with my hand in my grandmother's hand, and I was looking at my dad, who had just been in an accident where he tipped a forklift over on himself, and he had all these EKG leads all over him, and IVs, and just wires everywhere. And I was young enough, I didn't understand what was going on. And I just looked at him for a little while, and then I told my grandma that I wanted to leave the room. And we went out into the waiting room, and we sat down, and I just started getting all fidgety and everything. And my grandmother said, "Are you okay?" And I was like, "Grandma, when are they going to put his veins back in?" And that was like the first real traumatic moment in my life. And then about a year later, when he finally got out of the hospital, well, about a month after that, my mom left him. And when the divorce went all through, I had to go in and tell the judge that I wanted to live with my dad. And he was all strung out on pain meds, and I basically had to raise myself, from the second grade up until about, middle school, 13 years old, 12, 13 years old. And as I got to be more of a teenager and get to high school, I started selling drugs, and I thought, that's what I needed to do. I didn't really, I had guidance, but I didn't really have the guidance that I needed in that crucial time. And eventually, I ended up getting caught. I got caught with enough acid that I would have went to jail for 35 years. And luckily, one of the cops that was there, I grew up with him. He was a bit older than me, but it was just after I turned 18 years old. So he went to his, all right, well, that's no fun. But I'm just gonna keep going. He ended up talking his boss into letting me go, and he told me I owed him a favor. So what I did was, to get as a favor, is I quit selling drugs right then and there. And I decided I'm gonna go meet celebrities, and I'm gonna have them sign autographs, and eBay was just brand new. And I started selling autographs on eBay. And over the next 15 years, I've met thousands and thousands of famous people. And I made a lot of money. And I started taking that money and I started putting it into music. I helped create a couple bands. I produced a couple CDs. I created a music scene in Centralia. Before I got started, it was very, very minuscule here. But then I got started, and the music scene started jumping up. One of the greatest bands I've ever seen, the Hub City Hillbillies, showed up in Centralia, and it probably wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for me. And it was important that I was able to do this. I put my thumb on the history of this town. Not very many people know who I am. Well, a lot of people do. But then I ended up going to school and becoming an audio engineer in Arizona. And then right before I went to school there, I got a phone call from the doctors from the hospital over here, and they said, "You need to come down here. Your dad's not able to make any decisions for himself right now, and we really need you to come in." And what had happened was his entire large intestine had died, and he'd gone septic. And I'd never dealt with anything like that. I hope none of you have to deal with anything like that. It's terrible. But I was scared. I didn't know what to do. So I ended up letting him do the surgery and remove his entire large intestine. And that happened. His surgery was on Halloween of 2008. And then he was in a coma for the next 2 months, and the doctors were telling me he's not going to make it. And they were recommending that I pull the plug. And I wouldn't do it. And finally, I said, "You know what? Move him up to Seattle." As soon as we got up to Seattle, he started improving. And then we ended up getting him over to a respirator care facility. And I shit you not, on Christmas Eve, he woke up from his coma. And it was a week before I was supposed to leave to go to school in Arizona. And a few days later, he signed power of attorney over to me. And then I saw him one last time before I left, and he told me, "Go make me proud." He put so much pressure on me with that, I was a horrible student. My entire life I was terrible. My high school GPA was 1.6 or something like that. It was terrible. But I went down to Arizona, and for 8 months, the school I went to, they jammed 4 years of learning into 8 months. I was getting 4 hours of sleep a night, and just spent the rest of the time in the studios and learning. It was crazy. And then after that, I came back and I did an internship with this band called Bob Wayne and the Outlaw Carnies. And I came back so I could be close to my dad. And it was good. I wasn't able to go on tour. I wasn't able to do any audio work like I wanted to do. But what I did do is I created a band called Blood to Dust, and which is the name of one of Bob Wayne's best songs, in my opinion. And, it's like the ambulance is here. But from there, a couple months went on, my internship ended, and I was a really big Peyton Manning fan, and the Colts were on we're on Sunday night football, and this was Friday, and all of a sudden I just felt the absolute worst pain I've ever felt in my life. And it was about the time that the swine flu epidemic was going through, so I'm like, I'm not going to the doctor, I'm not going to the flu, because that's exactly what it is. Well, as time went on, it kept getting worse and worse. And then I said, well, if I don't feel any better by the end of the Colts game, I'm going to the hospital. Well, I went to the hospital after the game and ended up sitting in the ER waiting room for 4 hours. And then I got taken in and they checked me for the swine flu and found out I didn't have it. So then they ran some blood work. And then they couldn't figure out what was wrong. They knew that my white blood cell count was elevated. They couldn't figure out what was wrong. Luckily, one of the doctors there goes, you know what? We need to go send you for a CT scan. So we went in, and they found out that I had diverticulitis. When I was 11 years old, I was diagnosed with irritable bowel syndrome, and I'd lived with it the entire time. Turned out I had diverticulitis, and what had happened, I don't know, diverticulitis is this disease where the inside of your intestine starts bubbling up and filling with sacs of pus. And what had happened was 2 of those little sacs had burst, and it was the absolute worst thing ever. And they told me that I was lucky that I got there when I did, because if I would have waited another 2 hours, I would have been septic. And so they start on me on meds and stuff like antibiotics and stuff, and then the next thing I know, the same surgeon who I looked at as the person who nearly killed my father a year earlier walks into my room. And I said, no, you just leave, because this ain't happening. You send me to Seattle. And that guy was an asshole. So I didn't need a catheter, but he ordered one. So he put me through more pain than I already was going through, and it was just terrible. But then I went up to Seattle, and they held me for a few days, and I was supposed to come back 3 months later, and we were going to go in, and it was going to be an easy surgery. I had to come in for an ultrasound about a week before, and I had to prep for it the night before the ultrasound, and I drank this stuff. I can't even remember what it was, but it was horrible. And, well, as it started to clean me out and everything, sorry if it's a little disgusting, but it is what it is, it ripped me open again. And so I went into my appointment the next day, and I was like, sounds not right. And they ended up just admitting me, and the next day I had my surgery, and when I woke up, I had a colostomy bag attached to my stomach. And, well, not my stomach, but my belly. And I had to live with that for the next 8 months. And over that time, I was managing this band, and I was doing amazing things with this band. Around the same time, they privatized the sale of alcohol in the state of Washington. And so the venues, the bars I was putting music in and everything, they were like, we can't afford to have the musicians come and play. We can't pay them. So everything that I'd spent most of the last decade doing was gone. It was ripped away from me. And I'd taken like 1,000 oxycodones over that 8 months. And the doctors just kept giving me more and giving me more. And I had set up a show up in Seattle where Blood to Dust was going to play. And possibly sign them. And it just so happened that that show was the day that my surgery to get rid of my colostomy bag was taking place. Well, that day, I wake up, I go have my surgery, and when I woke up from the surgery a couple hours later, I get a phone call from one of my band members. We can't find our guitar player. We have no idea where he's at. And I was like, well, you guys got to be in Seattle in about 2.5 hours. You guys got to find him. They couldn't find him. So they couldn't show up for the show. They had to cancel. Next thing I know, I couldn't book any shows for this band. Most people wouldn't even return an email from me or anything like that. And then I ended up talking to one of my friends, and they said, you've been blackballed. So inside of that year, everything that I knew had been taken away from me. And I made the mistake of believing that that's who I was instead of what I did. And, well, because I was so high on the pain meds all the time, my head was fucked up. And I got suicidal. And one day, I was waiting on my paycheck to show up in the mail. And I decided I'm done. I can't do this anymore. When this check shows up, I'm going to cash it. I'm going to go down to the pawn shop. I'll buy a gun. I'm going to kill myself. And as I was waiting, luckily, this video came across my page from a guy who I had met back in 2002 named Kyle Cease. And, well, this video was called Stop Being a Pussy. It's no longer on his YouTube page. I wish he'd put it back up.
It's reading. It's still there. I know exactly what you're doing.
But it was 15 minutes, and it came right at the right time. It was 15 minutes of my old friend, who I had met because I was chasing celebrities around for autographs. And at the time, he was a B-list celebrity, not even a B-list celebrity. He'd been in 2 movies, and he was on a college spree doing stand-up comedy. And then we lost contact after a while when MySpace broke up. And then a few months earlier, from this point in my life, we reconnected on Facebook. And so this video comes across my wall, and I'm like, you know what? If anybody's going to put a smile on my face, it's going to be Kyle. And he had just recently been named the Comedy Central Comedian of the Year. I mean, he'd gone from being, somebody that nobody knew about to one of the top comedians in the world. And what I didn't know was a year earlier, he'd been through something fairly similar, and he bumped into a guy named Tony Robbins, who, a lot of you might know who he is, but Tony Robbins could tell there was something not right about him, and took him to an event, and then changed his life in about 15 minutes. And Kyle started making these videos. And this video came across my wall, and I was like, well, Kyle's going to put a smile on my face. And I watched it. It was 15 minutes of him telling me not to kill myself. So instead of going and buying that gun, I decided, you know what, I'm going to apply to go to school. And I applied for financial aid, and I got it all set up. And a month later, I started school. And then the first day of school, this girl walked through the door of my English class, and I just felt this spark. And it just so happened that the teacher had this thing going, where 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and this is your group, whatever your number is. And we got in this group and we hit it off, and she ended up telling me about this movie or book, The Secret. It's amazing how everything just keeps coming around to this law of attraction thing in this. But as I started watching this movie, and I was still in a pretty low place in my life. But this movie is about the power of positivity. And I started thinking, well, one of the things, the law of attraction, one of the guys says, well, one thing that I used to do is I just envision that I'm going to get the best parking spot where I'm going to go. And at the time I was going to the hub all the time. And the hub was really busy. And I always envisioned myself getting that first parking spot in the parking lot over there. And about 9 out of 10 times I got it. Busy Friday night, after everybody was there, I'd get that parking spot. And I was like, there's something to this. So I started putting this movie on every night when I went to bed, and I just let it soak in into my subconscious. A couple years later, I was getting ready to graduate. I was taking a statistics class, and I was not doing very well. Problem was, if I passed this class, I graduated. If I failed out of school. There was going to be no more school funding. And I'm sitting here studying, and all of a sudden, Kyle, he just, out of the blue, he messages me. He says, hey, are you coming to my event? Just like with Sarah, he started bugging her, and I was in complete resistance. So I was like, there's no possible way I can do this. and he tried talking me into it. We had this 15-minute conversation over Facebook, and then he goes, fine. Because I was just no. And he's like, fine. So I go back to studying and everything, and then it was back in the time when you get a notification on Facebook, it'd make a sound, right? And the sound comes up, and I go and I look, and Kyle Cease had just posted. And so I click on it, and it was a post. It was that long in text, and it was just berating me, but not by my name. Just berating people for not seeing the things that are out there trying to help you through life, and just being so scared that you're afraid to take the leap and just trust that the universe is going to catch you on the way down. So I was like, holy shit, man. I emailed him. I'm like, dude, all right, I will try to make it. I will maybe make it to your event. And it was down in LA. It was going to be really expensive. I think the tickets were like $400, and then I had to do airfare and 4 days worth of hotel room at a very, very swanky hotel in LA. And it was not going to be cheap. And so I told him this, and then we quit talking, and a month later, I had totally forgotten about this entire conversation because I was so focused on this class. And then he gets a hold of me again, and it was about 3-4 days before my final. And he was like, I noticed you haven't bought a ticket yet. And I was like, yeah, I'm really, really struggling with money right now, Kyle. And he's like, well, that's okay. Because I'm having this contest, and all I want you to do is make a video and put it on my wall. And in this video, I want you to act like you've already been to my event and tell me what you learned at the event, how you feel, and how you got there. And I was like, all right, I can do that. So I sit down and I write this 1-page script up, and I just filmed myself reading the script. And then I put it on his wall. And then A couple days later, I went and I took my final, and I failed. Oh my God, everything's going to hell right now. This is not good. But luckily, I had got just enough of a score throughout the entire quarter that I ended up with a 60% out of the class, so I passed. And I went the next day, I went and I walked in the graduation, and I came home from the graduation, and as soon as I opened up my computer, I get an IM from Kyle Cease. He's like, hey, I just want to tell you that you won one of these 5 tickets that I'm giving away. And, you know, I'm so excited that you're able to make it. But you got to pay for your hotel and your airfare and your food while you're down here. And I was like, okay, I'll make it happen one way or another. So, and this is true 100%. The very next day, something in my eBay store just happened to sell. And it was the exact amount of money that I needed to buy my airplane ticket down to LA. So I bought my plane ticket. About a week later, I randomly got a check in the mail. It was about $20 more than what I needed for my airline ticket back. And I was thinking, this is crazy. What's going on here? Well, we had a supermoon about 2 weeks after that. And me and the girl that I mentioned earlier, we went out to Boris Park to look at the moon. And we were about probably 2 football fields away from my car. And we were there for about an hour and a half staring at the moon. And we decided, well, let's go home. So we go back to the car and get in it and we start driving away. I get about halfway home and I go to turn on my stereo. It was gone. And we started looking around. Everything in the car had been taken. Even a spent jug of antifreeze was taken. Everything was taken. And so I got home, I called the cops, I told them what happened. They came in, I filed a report, and then I filed the insurance claims and everything. And everything that got taken got replaced with better stuff. Like, it was amazing. It was like, this is awesome. And then I got a check in the mail, which was enough to buy my hotel room for the 4 days and enough to feed me. So I went down and I went and had just the greatest weekend of my life up to that point. And I got on the plane. I came home. When I landed, I had $2 left in my name. And at the time, my dad was at this place, a facility up in Seattle. So I got in my car. I went up there, and there was a homeless guy there. So I gave on the corner when I got off the freeway. So I gave him the money. And my last $2, I gave it to him. And I went and I talked to him. And I had been accepted to Seattle University. And right then I decided, you know what, that place is not for me. And I was crying to my dad, he didn't know what to think, he didn't know what had happened. I was a changed man. And, well, a few days later, I'm with my friend Chanel, and we're driving over to Tacos El Rey, and I was telling her this story. And when I got to the point about my insurance company, my phone rings. And sure enough, it was the insurance company. Right when I mentioned them. It was amazing. And they were like, we didn't give you enough money. We still owe you $167, and it's in the mail. So it's your money, go ahead and cash it. I was like, awesome, this is great. So then the next day, the mail showed up, there was a check, and there was another thing. Fox Rent-A-Car had been involved in a lawsuit, and this thing said that they either owed me $20 or a free day of a rental, because I had been to Dimebag Darrell's induction into the Rock Walk back in 2007, and I rented a car from them. And I was like, this is great. So I was like, I'll take the car rental. And I put it in the mail and I forgot about it. December rolls around, Kyle C. starts saying, hey, I'm having another event in February. I'm like, okay, well that was amazing. I'm getting my ticket, I'm going. Alright, things were going pretty well for me by that point, just because my mind had changed, you know? And so the day I bought that ticket, the mail shows up and there's this voucher for this car rental. And I was like, this is crazy. I still couldn't believe this stuff was happening at this point. And so I was like, all right, well, I'm booking my airfare and I'm booking my car rental. And I did that. And then when I flew down there, I got on the shuttle to go rent my car. And it just so happened that the car rental agency was right next door to the hotel that the event was taking place where I was staying. And from there, my friend Amy was with me. We ended up going around getting some groceries and stuff. Ended up in Compton getting groceries. A couple white people dressed in really nice clothing. And we didn't even care, right? We didn't even realize it until somebody said that where we were at. We were at Crenshaw's in Slauson. And that's a hard part of the world right there. But and everybody was like, we walked into this grocery store, and like, you know how like in the movies when somebody walks into a party when they're not supposed to be there and all the music stops and like that happened. But it was cool. We went around, we got our stuff, and then we left and took our stuff back to the hotel, and we decided, you know, let's go over to the Hollywood Boulevard and go to the Rock Walk. We go there and we start circling around looking for a place to park, and finally we get a place right in front of Guitar Center where the Rock Walk's at, only across the street. And we get out, we walk across, and we go and we check all the stuff out. And then the last thing we did was we saw Dimebag's bust that was on the wall. I'd never seen it mounted before. I was there the day he was inducted, and it was just on a little table. And Dimebag is important to me because he was a good friend, and he was also the last person who got me drunk in 2004. 6 months later, he was murdered. But I tell Amy about this story when I was there in 2007, and I go and I take a picture of it, and I put my phone in my pocket and turn around to walk away. And I shit you not, the song "Cowboys from Hell" started blaring out of my pocket, which is one of Dimebag's most famous songs. And I was just blown away. And I was like, this is amazing. All right, well, let's walk over to the Hollywood Boulevard but let's check on the car real quick to make sure everything's right. I look across the street to see where the car was, see if everything was cool with it. And I noticed that I'm parked out inside of this really nice hotel, and it's called The Moment. And I looked at Amy and I said, you know what, Amy? I'm going to live there. And then went on to have another really amazing weekend. And because of all that, that's what led us here tonight.